Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with Jay Unboxing here with a fight preview for Canelo Alvarez versus John Ryder. And before we get my initial thoughts here on this one, let me know what you guys think of this one down in the comments section below. Your picks, your bets, all that good stuff. What do you think the atmosphere will be like in Guadalajara for Canelo as he's coming home for the first time in so many years, so many fights? I'd love to hear all that down in the comments section below. And of course, before we jump into it, be sure to like and subscribe, and of course hit that notification bell. It greatly helps out the channel. Would appreciate that, of course. And a little bit of fight info here. We have Canelo Alvarez taking on John Ryder. As mentioned, this would be taking place at the AKRON Stadium in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, airing live on DAZN in the super middleweight division with the Ring Magazine as well as the IBF, WBA, WBC, WBO versions of the title on the line, currently possessed by Alvarez. Now, in terms of my initial thoughts here, so to speak, the first one that kind of comes to mind is how does Canelo look a little bit older after some activity, but then a bit of a break because of the surgery? How will any of these sort of variables potentially impact his performance on the night? You know, I think so many of us forget the fact that Canelo is 32 years of age. You know, he's had a tremendous deal of fights, of course, starting out young in Mexico, as many Mexicans do. And on top of that, you know, he was moved pretty quickly, but actively at the same time, and has remained active even as he's become, you know, a superstar and one of the biggest names at the very least in the sport. Having said all of that, all the wear and tear of that, the training camps, and of course the fact that he's now towards the middle/end of that prime run, you kind of wonder how he'll perform. Was very, very active as it pertained to trying to round up all the super middleweight titles, but then of course has the surgery now after a couple of grueling fights where he's gone the distance with Golovkin. Whether, you know, it was a difficult win or not, it was still a fight where he was going all 12 rounds. Lost the fight to Bivol. You do wonder how all of this is going to kind of feed into this performance against someone he should be beating in John Ryder. Let's not kid ourselves. So with all of that in mind, of course, it's just a question of what will you see in the night from Canelo when we all kind of expect a demo job, but again, there are at least a few variables here that make it sort of uncertain. The other thought was, of course, well, what will the atmosphere be in that stadium and how will it affect either fighter? I think it's going to be tremendous. I think you're going to see, you know, anywhere from 35 to 45,000 minimum in that stadium. And it's his first home fight in so long. I think it's going to be just a rabid showing of Mexican support for Canelo Alvarez. That could, of course, affect both guys differently. You know, it could be Canelo saying, I'm going to be focused and dialed in because I want to put forth the performance these people deserve. It could also mean that he's going to try and overdo it and think too much and put too much emphasis on trying to get a quick knockout or, you know, destruction job, and he walks into more shots than he should, gets stunned maybe more than he would otherwise. You just don't know. On the flip side of that, of course, if you're Ryder, you could be completely overwhelmed. You're out of your element. You're traveling to begin with. This is going to be probably the biggest crowd you've ever fought in front of that really is against you. That could definitely weigh down your performance because you're just in a position where you just don't know how to deal with it necessarily. On the flip side of that, of course, it could be a spot where you have nothing to lose. You know, you don't have a bunch of people hounding you for tickets. Most people are not traveling to Mexico for this fight. If they're John Ryder supporters, I should say. You're going to be there trying to do the best you can. The crowd's going to be blocked out because there's no distractions and you're just dialed in. And it could produce the best performance Ryder can give. Win or lose, it could be his best performance. So you just don't know how it will affect him and what the atmosphere will be exactly, but that's certainly a compelling thought for me as well. And of course, the final thought is, will Ryder make it competitive? If it's at least competitive, he has a decent shot of continuing to kind of use the cachet that he's garnered from these sorts of fights. At the same time, the odds would suggest, the accomplishments of both men would suggest, it might not be such a close fight. So you certainly wonder what that will look like, and of course, how will Ryder perform on the night given all of these circumstances going into this biggest contest of his career. And for the winner, of course, you know, if you're Canelo, like always, you have all the options in the world, basically, from middleweight up to light heavyweight. For the most part, you call the shots in those divisions because, let's be honest, you're the breadwinner in those spots. You can have a super middleweight defense against the likes of a David Benavidez if you so chose, or David Morrell, the winner of that potential fight, which of course would be interesting. Or of course, you can challenge up at light heavyweight against Dmitry Bivol or even Artur Beterbiev, whatever the decision might be by you and your team. And of course, who's there to kind of be the most willing participant in those fights. You could even fight Bivol at 168 pounds, which is what he's sort of looking for. You have so many options, of course. If you're Canelo, winning just ensures that you can go straight into those without having to deal with any kind of rematch or anything like that. For Ryder, I mean, of course, it's a rematch to start with. That's what you're going to have to go with here, and that's a big money fight in and of itself, especially if you're going into it as a winner because they know they're going to have to pay you more. And if you could beat him twice, I mean, the world is your oyster, so to speak. You have all of the choices available to you in the sport of boxing. But what's more, it's also a chance to become a world champion. I think that's the thing people maybe are missing about this for Ryder. Yes, the biggest fight, it's in Mexico, it's against Canelo, the biggest star near him in the divisions and so on and so forth in the sport. But also, this is his title shot where he's looking to redeem himself from maybe falling short against Billy Joe Saunders, maybe try to make things right when he perhaps should have beaten Callum Smith for the titles way back in the day. This is his chance to really make it count and on the biggest stage of his career. So there's certainly money, there's accolades, there's everything you could possibly think of at stake for Ryder in this fight. And of course, whoever wins is going to have some decent selection of opponents going forward. Again, Ryder will probably have to deal with the rematch, but after that, if he were to be successful, of course, long shot as it might be, he certainly has a lot of options, as Canelo does if he's victorious. And for the loser, I mean, if it's Canelo, it's disaster. Massive favorite in his home country. Pay-per-view numbers are, already not what they were because you're not quite in the biggest fights in the world, and now you're fighting a guy who many do not think you should be fighting anyway, regardless of him being a mandatory or not. This would really just push back your progress in the sport right now. Again, it's not going to take away what you've already done. Certainly not a good look for you if you're Canelo. A loss is just not something you can afford in this particular fight. Now, the good news for you, of course, if you're Canelo is you're in Mexico, you're a big name, you have a great chin, you're probably not going to be stopped by Ryder. So even if it's a close fight, the odds are you're probably winning this one anyway. That being said, still not a great look if you even look like you're the loser in this one if you're Canelo, because you need to look like nothing but the most dominant fighter you can be on the night. Otherwise, criticism will arise from the performance. For Ryder, it really depends on the type of loss, Most expect the loss. That's not really the issue here. Is it a blowout, a quick stoppage, or does he make it more of a fight, more compelling, have his moments in the fight? If it's more of the former, hurts him, diminishes him a little bit, let's not kid ourselves. Still, great payday, a little bit of cachet. He can definitely take that with him back to England and make some bigger domestic fights happen on his way back up to the world stage. On the other hand, if he does make more of a fight and actually does kind of show, wow, it's not a fluke what he did in the Danny Jacobs fight or the Callum Smith fight, then it becomes a bit more of an interesting loss for him. Still a loss, of course, never a good thing, but again, it could be a lot worse, and he could use that to kind of build off of it and have some bigger fights down the road. And in terms of what to expect, Canelo having a happy homecoming. I mean, that's kind of what I'm expecting in this particular fight. Stoppage win, in my opinion. Of course, you can check out my prediction for this fight in the description box below, but spoiler alert, that is my prediction, of course, what I expect in this fight. In terms of the Canelo call-out, if he is to be victorious, I think Dimitri Bivol is the smart money. I think that's the fight he's going for. I think we all kind of know that. Of course, the winner between a potential showdown between Benavidez and Morel, as I mentioned, would be nice, but Canelo has his plans and they just might be fighting someone else. And of course, you have to worry about the promotional agreements and this and that and all that good stuff. So it's just difficult to discern whether or not he would fight someone from PBC. But in any event, those would be the spots that I'm assuming he calls should he win this contest, if he chooses to call anyone out at all. In any event, that is what I expect. And let me know what you guys think, though, of course, about this fight. What are your views on this one? Let me know down in the comments what you think of how this fight will go. And, of course, who you think Canelo would like to call out and who you would like him to call out yourself. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB. You can email me at junboxing@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you there. Of course, check out my prediction for Canelo Alvarez versus John Ryder in the description box below, as I mentioned. And check out junboxing.com for rankings, schedule results, betting odds, grades, all that good stuff. And as always, until next time.